I drank so much coffee today.
Isn't it the best?
So our good friend Kaylee Summers, who is a birth trauma mama on Instagram. If you don't follow her, listen to her podcast. You totally should. She's the best. Especially if any type of birth trauma. But we were like, we're gonna meet. Our kids go to summer camp together, so we're like, oh, we're gonna meet right up at drop off. We're gonna get like a quick cup of coffee and hang out. We ended up hanging out for 3 hours, and I drank so much coffee. And you know me, I don't drink that much coffee.
No.
It is a caffeine. I get when they say caffeine is a drug.
Yeah, because you feel high off of caffeine.
I feel high right now.
I am chugging coffee. I chug coffee daily.
And you don't. Okay, like how much coffee a day do you drink?
Probably like 3, maybe like I just like keep pouring in it because I have
all
like
day long.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, I'm still tired. But I also, I use a lot of cream.
You use a lot. That's true. You're probably only having one full cup of coffee because yours
I'm
is
really
mainly
drinking
half and
just
half.
A ton of cream.
You're just really into cream. So most days I don't drink any coffee.
But you do drink.
I don't really anymore. I was on a Celsius kick because I was using it as like a pre-workout before the gym, but I got off of that too.
I am.
I am like not dependent at all. I have no I have hyperfixation and then it's over. I have no type of addictive personality.
Same.
I will just done with it.
I saw a girl at the gym, I think it was yesterday, and she was drinking a Celsius while she was working out. I wanted to be like, oh, you're on the juice. You're on the juice.
That's like my whole gym. Like, like people just chugging Celsius as pre-workout. But I will say, like, I get this is such an ADHD thing. I get a hyperfixation and then I'll never have it again.
Yeah. I get like
never
that too.
again. Yeah. So for me, like I can drink like a whole bunch of coffee one day and then like never drink it again.
Wow. So this is your final day. This is yours. So
maybe. But it's funny is we're going to talk about anticipatory anxiety today. And one of the things we're going to talk about is limiting caffeine. But before we start, we have an amazing question from Kayla, which is, do you sleep with a flat sheet or just your comforter / quilt and no sheets? This has been a big debate moving in with my partner. I really want to know what side Kayla's on.
Kayla. Right. Like, why didn't you tell us? Kayla, let us know.
We want to DM us.
I hate a flat sheet.
Okay, but do you still sleep with it?
No.
Because Bill likes it. You guys just don't use a flat sheet?
Bill uses he sleeps on top of everything and then uses like a blanket. So so here's my solution to the person who's writing in. You could have both. One of you sleep on top of the flat sheet.
And the other person sleeps under the flat sheet?
Yeah.
We both use the flat sheet. I move so much, especially now. Okay, so now I'm in medical menopause, right? Lots of people we've talked to the IVF that was recorded a while ago. Now they put me into medical menopause as a way to help try to get me pregnant. All I have to say we're in our 30s. We haven't hit menopause yet. This shit's fucking for the birds. This shit sucks.
What's the worst part? What's the worst part about it?
The hot flashes.
Yeah.
The hot flashes.
Oof.
We were on a meeting yesterday. I could barely pay attention because of how hot I was. The only horrific thing so far are the hot flashes. Also, I am quite moody, but the hot flashes are horrific. So all night long, I am under a blanket, in a blanket, on top of a blanket, go in the bath. Like it is a bad situation in the evening. So yeah, so the answer is that I do sleep with a flat sheet on it, but I am everywhere and anywhere throughout the night.
The thing that I don't like about a flat sheet is that it gets like bunched up at the bottom of the bed.
Every time, every night.
I hate that. It drives me insane.
Do you sleep with clothes on?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm a naked sleeper.
Oh, so no wonder you want a flat sheet.
I'm
basically wearing a flat sheet.
Yeah. So there's the difference, right? Oh, wait. Yeah. So I need another layer. You need less of a layer because you have a layer of clothing. All right. Well, there we go. We solved it. So Kayla, I want to know 1, how do you sleep? And 2, I want to know what you're wearing to bed. That sounds inappropriate.
Yeah. Also, like you could have both, this is where communication comes up with your partner and you could just like navigate, can we compromise in this situation? Actually,
listen, What?
I have an amazing story from this morning about compromising with your partner. Actually, about shared responsibilities. I don't know why I did not figure this out sooner. So, in the morning, I don't know if you have this. I assume you do. You wake up and there's like a bunch of like little chores you have to do. Like I have to take the dog out, like I empty the dishwasher, I water the plants. So we
Yeah.
have like a bunch of like shared responsibilities in the morning before we get our
Yes.
workday started. So we're sitting down having breakfast and we were
Do you
talking
guys
about,
sit down and have breakfast together every morning?
we try to.
That's the cutest
If we
fucking
have
thing I've ever
time,
heard.
if we have time,
Cutest
we'll
thing
do
I've
it.
ever heard.
Thank you. And so we were sitting down eating breakfast and we had to empty the dehumidifier. We had to water the plants and we had to take Louie out. And so we we did rocks, paper, scissors for every single thing.
Rocks, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors.
It's not rocks. Rock, paper,
Just
scissors.
one rock.
We did rock, paper, scissors. But it's scissors, right? Scissor. We did rocks, paper, scissor for every single chore.
It's
And
pretty good.
I lost every single one. Okay. I lost every single one, but let me tell you something. When I went to do each of those chores, I had zero resentment and I felt so good about doing it because
Because
I
fair is
lost.
fair.
Fair is
Fair is fair.
fair.
Rock, paper, scissors. What do you want?
And usually the way we divvy it up is just like who's more busy doesn't do them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're just like, oh, or if you wake up first, or if you're, we just kind of like it's real nebulous.
Yeah.
And if someone's doing it over and over again because they're really busy, it's very easy to build up resentment.
Yeah.
And so now I will be implementing the rock, paper, scissors technique for every chore for the
You know
rest of
what? You
time.
know what I think would be fun?
Tell me.
You should have one game per month. Like this month, it's almost August. So like August is rock, paper, scissors, right? Like September should be like Connect Four. Like you should like keep it fresh, baby.
The only problem is like some of those games are going to take a little longer. Connect more.
Well, you're sitting there having a goddamn parfait together. You're hanging out anyway. Fuck it.
That's
She
true.
brings out Monopoly and turns into
I'm
a
there
whole other
all day.
situation.
I get nothing done. Monopoly is the longest game.
I think someone gave Millie Monopoly Jr. for her birthday, and I'm
You
pretty
throw
sure I
it
hid
out.
it somewhere. I was
Yeah,
like,
you
this is
should.
not yet.
Absolutely should. Actually, I was playing Candyland with Millie. And let me tell you, I don't think I remembered how long Candyland could last.
Okay. She could have won like 10 times, and she kept being like, no, I have to do this. Like, she didn't want the game to end.
I was like, Millie, you won. She was like,
no.
No. I was like, oh no.
She was that. I think that game could have been over much sooner. She was
Yeah.
not interested in that game ending because what she was interested in is you and Nikki keep getting moved back to the beginning the whole time. She just was interested in fucking you guys over.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, she did.
She's good.
She's good. She knows what she's doing.
She's good at the candy in the land. Okay. So, but we have to get to today's episode about anticipatory anxiety, which really is the anxiety we feel when we are anticipating a difficult decision, action, or situation. Right. So we all know what anxiety is, but this is like the
anxiety, the worry about the future, the worry about the fear that you're going to experience in the future.
Yes.
And it can come from a bunch of different places too. I think that like one that's very common is situational anticipatory anxiety, that you have like a big event coming up.
Yeah.
Or you're doing something that scares you or you've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
And the worry about what that experience is going to be like when you get to that experience, what could go wrong. You go into all of the what ifs. So I think the situational anticipatory anxiety is very, very common. And then there's other more chronic forms of anticipatory anxiety where we're constantly fearing the future of like what could possibly happen, what would this be like, something that becomes a little bit more chronic.
Yeah.
And that's where it can get tough, right? With situational, you conquer it, the anxiety is over, you did it.
Mm-hmm.
when it's something that's more chronic, it's something that takes a little time, might take a little therapy, might take some coping mechanisms, um, to really work through some of these things. And some of the triggers for anticipatory anxiety, they vary, and common instigators can include, as we said, impending major events, uncertainty about what's ahead, past traumatic experiences, and also a habit of just imagining the worst outcome.
Mm. Well, and somebody had asked him, like, right, like, why do we have it? You started to focus on these things, right? So, past traumatic events, fear of the unknown. For a lot of us, perfectionism can be something that leads us. Some people that are very perfectionist people have high anticipatory anxiety. I would also say, like, the media, the news, and society, right? Like, right, one of the big things people are feeling right now is anticipatory anxiety around the upcoming election. What's going to happen? What's this going to look like? Is there going to be issues with loved ones in my life that we disagree on different stuff? Like all these things we can start to think about when it's big life events. There's also social and interpersonal factors, right? So, like, let's say people I'm with are highly anxious people or catastrophizing people. Let's say I'm just a highly anxious person. It could come out more. And especially if you're someone who has a lot of like cognitive distortion type stuff, like overthinking, catastrophizing. Once again, it's going to go into that.
Mm. Do you ever have anticipatory anxiety?
Yeah. Okay. So we had a wedding last weekend, a wedding I was excited about, but it was people from college. I don't see a ton. Um, Body image stuff always comes up. I was feeling anxious about how I was gonna feel. It was fucking awesome. I had a blast. And that's an example of situational, right? I totally have anticipatory anxiety around the upcoming election, especially in terms of IVF rights and reproductive rights.
Yeah.
I got my little embryos in a cooler, my Coleman cooler. And it's scary to think about, like, could I lose that rights? What's this
Yeah.
gonna mean? Like, so I have a lot of that type of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're better at it than I am.
You think? I think we have different types of anticipatory anxiety. Like mine, I mean, if you think about mine more so connects to like past experiences and like
Yeah.
phobias that I have, like passing out. That is a perfect example of
Yes.
anticipatory anxiety. I've had past experiences of passing out while any sort of blood is drawn.
Yeah.
If I'm talking about blood, if I'm talking about that is it's no longer the case because I really battled my anticipatory anxiety. So I think I'm better at it now. Um, but there was a time when I was terrible at it because I started to develop the fear of having the fear. And
Yeah.
that's what happens is that you start to develop this fear of like, well, what if this happens? What if I pass out while I'm giving a speech? What if I pass out while I'm driving? Right. There's been a lot of fear around that. And so I found ways to cope with that because what happens is when that fear develops in the moment, you start to develop the symptoms of passing out, which
Yeah.
reinforces um, that fear. So that's something I have really, I think, conquered in a lot of
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah. You have.
but it took a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Ours are very different. Like, I don't have any type of medical, like death. Like, I have like no fear of
Yeah. I don't either. I
death,
must.
sickness, any health stuff. Like, that is not where my mind goes.
I think that's maybe how I battled it, that I like no longer have that fear.
Wait, because you don't care about death anymore.
Well,
Wait,
I'm kind
wait,
of just like, if it happens, it happens.
what?
It's just like,
Like,
I
of
think,
all the stuff, like those are ones I like don't have a lot of stuff about.
yeah.
I'm also saying to when I was out with Kaylee this morning, I was like, "Oh, try this drink," and she was like, "Oh, I have like a little bit of a cold. I don't want to." And I was like, I'm like the least germaphobe person. I'm like, I'll lick a toilet seat. Like,
Yeah.
I am trash. I have no germ phobia.
I don't either, actually.
None.
Which, you know who it definitely like grosses out?
Nikki. Nikki thinks
Nikki.
that we are.
Poor Nikki.
Nikki thinks we are. For your new listener, Nikki is our producer. She thinks that we are animals.
Yes. Oh, would you ever share a toothbrush?
Yeah, because I'm.
See, that's the one thing I'm like, I'm not
You
into.
wouldn't?
No.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't do it on purpose, but like, yeah, if it was like an emergency
Oh,
situation and
no.
like I
Yeah,
would
no.
rather, I hate the feeling of grossness in my mouth.
Me too. But Bill has used my toothbrush before, and I'm like,
On purpose or accident?
on purpose. He's just like
Well,
didn't have a toothbrush. Not into it.
was it an emergency situation? Could he not access another toothbrush?
I'm like, you know what? Get a breath mint. Just like, or use your finger.
Oh, yeah, you can always use your finger. That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people always want to know. All right. So let's talk about this one.
Yeah.
What do you think the line is between productive anticipation anxiety, like planning and prepping, and unhealthy anxiety?
Oof.
Because
I
it's
love this
true.
question.
Prepping can be very helpful, right? So I'm going to this wedding. I'm feeling kind of anxious about it. I have some body image stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a dress I really like that I feel good in, right? I'm not going to change my body. I'm not going to crash diets. I'm going to say, hey, here's something I feel good in. And I tried on a whole bunch of different stuff, had it sent, returned, blah, blah, blah. So that was really helpful. Okay, I felt confident in this. I like it. That's different. What can I control?
Yes.
And where is the line between also over preparing?
That is exactly what I was going to say. The control piece of, I think that when we cross the line is when we move into a place of focusing on the things that we can't control. And our mind often does that, right? That we start to ruminate about things that are out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us this false sense of control of, well, maybe if I think about this enough, it's going to control the situation, when that is actually just not true. So it's a perfect example of take control of the things you can control, the planning, right? If I'm going to plan this, what are the things that I'm planning that allow me to feel like I have more control over the situation? And then if I'm planning in my mind and I'm recognizing those things that I'm trying to plan, I actually don't have control over, that's where you've crossed the line.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, like, for me, my anxiety comes out in anger.
Mm.
So for me, when we're going to go travel to my in-laws' house, you can straight guarantee my husband and I will be fighting. Because for me, it's anxiety situation, especially around election times, because we all have very different feelings around things. And as much as we have said, hey, we just can't talk about politics, this is not something we can do, there's always someone who breaks that rule. And so I start getting anxious about going probably like 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
And then we start fighting, and I start picking fights, and he's picking fights, and there's all this like unsaid shit. Like, I called you last week and I was like, what am I gonna do? I gotta get divorced. Because I'm a catastrophizer. And we had a long conversation. It was very helpful. And I was like, okay, here are some things I can control, and here are the things I can't. And since we've had that conversation and I came up with some stuff that I'm going to do a little differently this time, I have felt way better. But the hard part is, once you have come up with the things you can control, how do you let go? One of the things we're talking about is, like, what are actual tools? Somebody wrote in, what are some actual tools? Because sometimes deep breathing just ain't cutting it, which I love. It's a very funny comment because it's really true. If deep breathing works for you, that is amazing. It just doesn't work for a lot of people. So one of the things we also want to talk about is taking care of our physical bodies, limiting caffeine and stimulants. They're going to make you more anxious. They just are. So keep in mind, how much caffeine, how much stimulants am I consuming? How is my sleep going? Because sometimes we're really anxious, we get less sleep, but then also the lack of sleep makes us more anxious. And it's a really fun cycle. We just keep going through. So how am I taking care of my sleep hygiene during this time? Am I getting social support? And one of the things I think we do sometimes when we're a very anxious person is we just like talk at people, blah, 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 unbridled self-expression. And one, we're then not listening and receiving information, but we're not getting true support of vulnerability. Then you're going to find the balance between preparing and ruminating. You can only do so much. If it is taking up, if you are thinking about this nonstop, if you were thinking about this from sun up to sundown, it's a fucking problem. That's ruminating. That's not prepping. That's not thinking about it. Another great thing you could try is limiting your avoidance. One of the things we try to do when we're having a lot of anticipatory anxiety is ignore it and pretend it's not happening. Here's the reason that can sometimes backfire is because we're not actually ignoring it. we're just avoiding it, it's still in our head making us anxious and can be coming out. It can come out physically, it can come out unconsciously. And so saying, like, okay, really addressing it. Here's what I'm feeling anxious about. Here is my fears. Here's what's going on for me. And what can I control around this? And one of the things that can also help with that is routine. I know for me, I need to keep a certain amount of routine, especially like when I go to my in law's house, I'm really out of my routine. It doesn't help my anxiety. I don't have my same workout that I do, my same walking, any of that kind of stuff. I have to figure out a new routine when I'm there. And all of those can sort of help a little better.
So interesting you mentioned, and I obviously know this, that like your anxiety comes out through anger and
You've never met me?
of course. And mine, yeah, I'm so shut down when I'm feeling anxious.
Hmm.
Just so
You
complete.
can like barely like talk.
Yeah. And I will
And I'm
say,
like, blah, blah, blah.
and I will say out loud, I'm so shut down. Like
Yes, you are.
I say it because I can feel it. Um, and so, I'm thinking about how, yours comes out as like, oh, I need to talk to like get this out. And you talked about like actual like vulnerability and like connection with other people. If you're someone who's very shut down with your anxiety, um, to speak, say it out loud, do whatever. And if you need to write it down first to just like get it out,
Mhm.
because I think that as you're shut down, it's an attempt to avoid what's happening for you, right? It's an attempt to separate yourself from it, but you can try to avoid it as much as possible. It's still going to be there. The
Yeah.
actual way to cope with it and to work with it is to acknowledge it, and to be able to say, well, what is causing me anxiety? I don't know if you have this experience, and maybe not because I am so avoidant and it's just my immediate coping mechanism. But when I'm feeling really anxious about something and I'm really shut down about it, I can feel it in my body. And then I sometimes cognitively forget about what I'm anxious about.
Okay. No, that's not my experience.
Yeah, yeah, I imagine. So like I am unbelievable at compartmentalizing. And so because of that, I'm so separated cognitively from like the anxiety, but my body still feels it.
Yeah.
And it's a coping mechanism
I
that,
know, but that sounds hard to me.
yeah,
I
to
think
do.
that would fuck with me. I don't know. Okay, wait, I'm just trying to think. So for me, we've had this talk before. We have really busy. I'll like look at our schedule for like weeks out and be like, okay, here's how I prep. I do so much pre-planning. Like if I like look through, okay, so for August, we're like going blah blah blah. We have all these different stuff. I've already bought like we're going, they're like 2 weekends, we're going away, we're staying at someone's house. I've already bought the hostess gifts. I've already done the stuff. The last one's in the last weekend of August. We're recording this on July 31st, right? I'm planning weeks out, baby. And then I just like forget about it.
Mm,
And I don't know. So I guess in some ways that feels like me compartmentalizing because I just check it off my list like way before.
mm.
I think it coming out physically would be hard for me.
I think that pre-planning, because of like I have to be so present in order to
Yeah.
deal with my anxiety in general, that pre-planning actually keeps me from being present and being able to actually
Yeah.
get anything done.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that is why I don't look at things ahead, because it ends up like I I because my coping mechanism is avoidance. If I put too much in my head, I will shut down. I won't be able to do anything in the present moment.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I separate it as much as possible. But it sounds like for you, if you don't acknowledge those things and get them done, then you won't be able to get anything else done. Like if you don't check things off your list, how is it affecting you in the present
You
moment?
know what? It's not that I won't get other things done, it's that I will sabotage everything around me. It's
Oh,
that I will fight, it's that I will be reactive, it's that, that's what it actually is for me.
that
So I'll
makes
still get it done. Let me be clear, I never don't get something
sense.
I would never let that happen, I'm too uptight. But I will, if I like Aaron will get really mad at me because like I want like the house like we're like right so we're leaving for a trip on Friday. Today's Wednesday. I'm like, oh, everything should be packed.
Right now. We are
I did
so
all the
different.
laundry. I did all the laundry for this trip on Monday, which is really silly because now I'm going to have to do more laundry on Friday
Yeah.
before we go because people have already worn clothes. But it's not as much laundry on Friday. It's just like it'll be like 2 loads.
Yeah, no, you and I are so different.
We're
So different. I will do that laundry the night before.
that stresses me out.
Not me.
Also, probably because I go to bed at 9:30, so I don't
Right,
have
right. I'm not, so you don't have time. Yeah, that does not stress me out because then I can be present in the moment while I'm doing the laundry to get it done.
no, not me.
Yeah. So listen, moral of the story is, and us just talking about ourselves and our own
We're different as
anxiety,
fuck.
and you could be different too. And
Yeah.
you just have to figure out what works best for you and your anticipatory anxiety. If I plan too far in the future, my anticipatory anxiety grows. It just
Yeah.
gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And mine doesn't.
And yours doesn't. It helps you to be
Yeah.
able to function. And so for me, if I plan, I am too anxious about the future and what's going on, like it almost increases my anticipatory anxiety.
The only time I've actually seen you plan super far ahead
Yeah.
when we had to do the rebrand photo shoot, like 4 weeks before, you're like, we got to get clothes. We
Yeah.
got to get, that was the only time I've actually been like, oh shit, I'm late to the game. Jen's ordering clothes already.
I think I was so bored at the shore.
Oh, it's because you're living by yourself.
I was
And your
living by
parents. Yeah.
myself. I
Okay.
had
That makes
nothing to
sense.
do.
Because I remember like you send this text being like, we got to get on outfits. And I was like, oh, fuck, really? Like, and I miss planner. And you were way ahead of it.
Was I right?
I don't know. We ended up ordering the first thing we ever picked out is what we ordered and what we wore.
Yeah, yeah. So it didn't
Yeah.
matter.
So, it didn't really matter.
Still
Okay.
very stressful.
What are some ways I can recognize and cope with anticipatory anxiety? So, recognize, we just talked about some examples, right? So, everyone is different. How does anxiety manifest for you? So, once again, it's so annoying. It's such a therapist thing to say. Got to know yourself to grow yourself, baby. So, how do you handle and how does it start showing? How is it manifesting for you? Mine is that it'll start to come out in anger. I'll be nitpicking. I'll be perfectionistic about stuff. Jen's is, it sounds like she shuts down. So for you, you can only cope with something once you can recognize it. What you resist persists. So for me to be able to say, man, I've been really reactive this week, or man, I'm really picking some fights, or man, I've been like kind of like crazy around this. Oh, wait, here's what's happening for me. And then for me, it is helpful to plan, but what's really helpful for me is to get downtime, is to get more sleep, to get more time in nature. So I plan what I can, and then I go to the coping skills I know work for me.
I think too, changing your relationship just with your inner experience. Someone wrote in and said, how to not worry about the what ifs. And we get this question all the time, this like, how do I not this? Because it's so uncomfortable to feel these things. And we get it. We're uncomfortable with those feelings too. And if we could wave a magic wand to say we could take away your anxiety, we absolutely would do that. However, when there's a worry, or if you're harsh with yourself about feeling the anxiety, the anticipatory anxiety, the anxiety can get worse, right? And or it
Mm-hmm.
leads to an inability to acknowledge what's going on for us, which keeps us from saying, well, how do I want to cope with this? So even just changing your relationship with your inner experience to say, okay, I can understand and recognize that I have this anxiety that's coming up for me. And I when you start to say, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel this, the anxiety just gets stronger. So I want you to say instead, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling really anxious about this. It's okay
Mm,
that I'm feeling really anxious about this. Now, what do I want to do about it? Right? Bring
yeah.
it to the forefront. Am I worrying about things I can take control of, or am I worrying about things that are out of my control? If I'm worrying about things that are out of my control, how can I bring myself back to the present moment if I need to? Or how can I plan the things to take those off my list if they are in my control?
Yeah. Someone had said my wife's ex / our kid's dad is emotionally abusive and we're worried about what he'll do next. This is a perfect example when we talk about the past traumatic events. One of my very close girlfriends had very bad birth trauma with her first kid, and she just delivered her second kid. And the weeks leading up to her second birth were probably one of the most difficult I've ever seen her go through.
Mhm.
She was so fucking scared. Understandably so. If your partner has gone through some traumatic, of course you are going to be very worried about what is going to happen next. That is normal. That is your body taking care of you. Because anxiety, if you didn't watch Inside Out 2, you now must. Anxiety's job is to protect you. It doesn't realize sometimes it goes too far and it's not helpful. It's trying to protect you. So her trauma around her second birth and her anxiety around her participatory anxiety around her second birth was, okay, what am I do different? She hired doulas this time. She advocated for herself more. She did more research. She tried to understand things in a different way. But at the end of the day, she planned and plans, and then everything fell the fuck apart. I mean, I have never seen somebody go through all the shit she planned and tried to control, complete shit show, all fell apart. Every single part of her birth plan got fucking fucked up.
Wow.
And at some point, there is nothing we can do.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing she could have done. She did all of it, and it was amazing. It was perfect. And she was still so disappointed. And so then we come into this situation. You can have radical acceptance and still have grief.
Mm-hmm. Someone wrote in, I have high functioning anxiety, type A lady. And honestly, it's mostly served me throughout my life. If it's not a problem, is that okay? Absolutely.
You betcha, baby.
You
If
live
it
your
works,
life.
work it.
Right?
We've talked about this a lot in terms of like, we are both who we consider like recovering people pleasers. But the reality is that actually worked really well for us, especially when we started this business.
Yeah. People pleasing
It
everyone.
we people is never, but it worked. Listen,
Yeah.
like there was parts of it change about it, yes, but like there's also a lot of parts that work. So like this idea that we do that we pathologize everything all the time. If something works for you, go on with your
Go
bad
for
self,
it.
man.
And
Yeah,
something that might work for you now, it could continue to work for you in the
hmm
future, and it might change. And if it changes, then you can make a change. And so
totally.
I think that's something to just consistently ask yourself is this still serving me in the present with where my life is now?
Yeah,
And then you get to make a decision. But if you are saying it's working for you, then nothing to change.
yeah. All right, dear Em and Jen.
Let's do it. Dear Em and Jen, friendship question. I'm always the friend who plans the get-togethers, remembers the little things, sends cards, etc. Last year I moved countries, 1 hour flight, lol. Jo-
Why
jobs,
were they
etc.
moved?
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
We want to know.
can I go visit?
Yeah, it's 1 hour. I'm in.
I moved countries, jobs, etc. after working in healthcare during COVID and being totally
Mm.
completely burnt out. Basically, all my friends have visited me or try to see me when I am home, etc., and keep in touch. But one of my oldest friends, who I would have classed as one of my absolute
Classified.
best, classified
I know.
as
Yeah.
one of my absolute best friends, has been really crap with communication. First, she was searching for a job, so used that as use that as the reason. I'm sorry, my reading comprehension right now is garbage. used So use that as the reason why she was not replying, and then got a hectic job and uses that as an excuse now. But it's got a bit ridiculous now. She takes weeks to reply, never has time to meet or initiates meetings. After a year of this, I got fed up and decided to stop being the first to message, which has essentially meant we haven't messaged for 6 months outside of groups for bachelorettes, etc. I know she can tell I am different with her because it's not usual for me to not initiate communication. When I have seen her at events, I do find it hard to be around her as it just doesn't feel genuine. My question is, am I being unreasonable? She has a child and is married. I am not, nor is a lot of our friends. I know the mature thing to do is say her behavior is upsetting me, but we are both very conflict avoidant. I just feel that it's a bit beyond now. It takes 10 seconds to reply to a message. I never expect her to visit. And I know she has responsibilities. She can't meet as easily when I am home. But is it unreasonable to expect your best friend of 20 years to reply to your text or maybe initiate once in a while? Should I accept that we are in different places and that our friendship has drifted and that might be it?
Oof. Okay. Well, if the question of what they're asking is it unreasonable to expect your best friend of 20 years to reply? Of course, that is not unreasonable at all. If that's the question you're asking, right? Why aren't you saying anything?
Right. That's the question we're asking.
The question we're asking you is, what the fuck is going on here? I understand you're conflict avoidant, but who do you want to be? Not who we are. Who do you want to be in this relationship? And if you're ready to lay this relationship to rest, 20 years, love it, great memories, I'm going to say goodbye. Okay, that's fine. But if you're ruminating and you're thinking about this and you're feeling hurt, what would it be like to just say something? Hey, clearly we've stopped talking. What's going on? It sounds like you have a lot of mutual friends. It sounds like you're probably going to see this person again in your life. So, what would it be like to face your fear? And listen, if this other person's super avoidant, they're probably not going to tell you the truth either way. But who do you want to be? And so, the other question they ask is, should I accept that we're in different places and that our friendship is drifted and this might be it? Do you want to accept that? If you want to just accept it and let this go and do nothing about it, you absolutely are allowed to do that. The question I'm asking is, it's not about should I accept it? Do you want to?
And here's what we know too, is that over time, relationships change. They fluctuate because of the places that you're in, both physically and just logistically, right? Whether, friends have kids or they're busy or they have busy work lives or their ability to communicate is different. Their emotional wellness is different, right? Like sometimes when people are going through something, it's harder for them to reach out, it's harder for them to communicate. And so friendships do drift and they do change. Um, and so having an open and honest communication about that, where it doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict. And I know it's uncomfortable, but it sounds like this person and this friendship is important to you. And so if it's important to you, have the uncomfortable conversation. If it's important to you, push yourself past your comfort zone and then you have an answer, right? Because ruminating and questioning and asking us is not going to get you your answer.
And I'm going to tell you, before you do it, you're going to have a lot of anticipatory anxiety.
Absolutely.
So you might listen to this episode 5 times.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Shrink Chicks.
We'll see you back here next week for another session.
In the meantime, if you want a question answered or a topic discussed, follow us on Instagram at ShrinkChicks. And if you're looking to get connected with a therapist like us to start or continue your therapeutic journey, visit thetherapygroup.com. Just fill out a contact form on our website, and we will personally match you with one of our amazing therapists. And for all of our therapists and group practice owners out there, we also offer group practice consulting.
And if you're looking to support yourself further and support our show, check out our amazing merch options at shrinkchicks.com/merch and our Know Yourself, Grow Yourself journal on Amazon. Also, if you'd be so kind, we'd love a rating, review, and for you to share with a friend or an enemy or a mother-in-law, honestly, whoever needs it, so that we can keep reaching more people on our mission to bring mental health topics to your ears every week.
Thanks for being here with us. And don't forget, to grow yourself, you got to know yourself.